Welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in the series Freemasonry and Satanism. Number 70, Part 4. Oh my God. The more I read, the worse it gets. Continuing on with this book. Secret Societies and Subversive Movements, Nestor Webster, 1924. She knew what she was talking about. The real Jewish peril. At present, they are the greatest danger that Christian civilization has to face. The recognition of all these facts does not, of course, imply the belief that all Jews are destructive. Undoubtedly, there are good and loyal Jews, particularly in France, where the Sephardim predominate. That would be Hebrews, Jews of the original Jewish bloodline, related to the ancient Jews. The Ashkenazis, or Khazarian, they adopted the religion of the Jews, and it's north near Russia, huge territory. And they were a brutal force, mighty force in ancient times. If another country went to war, they would supply 60,000 soldiers to go fight for them. They rented an army out. Remember, this book was written in 1924. A lot has happened since then. World War II, Korea War, Vietnam War, 9/11, lots of politics, European Union, and communism, which is real, has been inching its way to dominate the world. And remember, communism was created by the Zionist, evil Jewish people, who in some countries, it's illegal to even talk about this. So these Sephardic Jews have absolutely identified themselves with the country of their adoption and are sincerely opposed to Bolshevism. Remember, at this time also, this was when the slaughter was going on in Russia, killing, some say, up to 100 million Christians and other good people, destroying all the Christian churches, but not the Jewish temples. It started in 1917 after World War I. Lasted 10 plus years. This was written in 1924. Bolshevism. These are the people behind Zionism and world domination, New World Order, controlling every aspect, school systems, banking systems, industries, politics, politicians, countries, governments. Beyond belief. What does Israel have? They say about 300 nukes and something called the Samson option. That's not in this book. And if we try to stop them, they're going to let those nukes loose on countries and take the whole world down in flames with itself. That's some mentally ill people. If they don't get their world domination and kill 85% of the people off, especially the Christians, whom they hate, and they're bent on destroying. Why? And giving us a Luciferic, degenerate, perverted gay agenda, pedophilia, adultery, very sick world, ugly world they want. I can't say it strong enough from my research. But anyways, moving on. But these isolated individuals carry little weight compared to the massed forces of subversion Jewry. The same thing was observed in America. where a report privately communicated to the present writer in 1923 stated, "It appears not without its significance that radical literature is never anti-Semitic, but on the contrary, manifestos issued by the Executive Committee of the Communist Party are often emphatically pro-Jewish." Well, the Jewish people control the Communist Party, the evil ones. So as far as I know, there is not one exclusively Jewish organization in the United States which is openly and consistently fighting radicalization. Conservative Judaism, loyal to the United States and its institutions as conceived by its founders, is unorganized and inarticulate. It doesn't exist. Only the pro-communist organizations, including Freemasonic lodges, Illuminati, Rosicrucian, all kind, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission. I could go on for an hour. If you've been watching my videos, you know there are thousands of these secret groups all over the world, all over the United States. When, therefore, the Jewish press protest at the injustice of associating Jews with Bolshevism, it may be legitimately answered, what has Jewry done collectively to disassociate itself from Bolshevism? What official protest has the Jewish press uttered against any subversive movement except when Jewish interests were threatened? Has it not, on the contrary, denounced all patriotic efforts to oppose the forces of destruction whenever such efforts necessitated the exposure of the corrupt elements in Jewry? But these tactics have not been confined to the Jewish press alone. The general press of this country, over which the Jews exercise an increasingly control, has followed the same policy. This process of penetration began long ago on the continent. As early as 1846, an English missionary to the Jews in Berlin wrote, independently of the 15 exclusive Jewish journals of Germany, so 15 exclusively Jewish journals of Germany, 4 of which have made their appearance since the beginning of the present year, 1923. The daily political press of Europe is very much under the domination of the Jews. Nestor Webster. I just read books. Lots of books. I'm starting to get a good bird's eye view of what we got going on here. As literary contributors, they influence almost every leading continental newspaper, and as controversy seems to be their native air, they bring into the field mental energies of no ordinary stamp. They find no lack of employment, and if any literary opponent ventures to endeavor to arrest the progress of Judaism to political power, he finds himself held up to public notice and exposed to attack after attack after attack in most of the leading journals of Europe. Such was the lot of a Roman Catholic priest of Prague, who later wrote a pamphlet entitled Goethe Rat für Zeit der North, whatever that means, directing against the advancing power of Judaism. And such is my conviction of the extent of the participation the Jews take in everyday literature of Germany, that I never pass by a crowded reading room, but what I think I see standing behind the scenes, a Jew causing new ideas to rise and stir, develop themselves in the unsuspecting mind of the Gentile, non-Jews. Do we not see the same methods being pursued with still greater vigor today? This is 2015, and the answer is yes, extremely. It would not be an exaggeration to say that there is hardly a periodical in this country, with the exception of the Patriot, that dares to speak out freely on questions in which the interests of Jews are involved. The fact is that the whole educational, as well as the whole political and social world, is permeated with Jewish influence. They are bent, as we have been reading in the Freemasonic books and other books, they are bent on destroying Christianity. With the media and the propaganda, TV, news, movies, they've pretty much discredited Christianity in the mind of the citizens of the USA, basically turning the minds of most of the people of the USA into zombies. They say about 85%. 15% of us are still aware, and I'm sure with the computers and all the monitoring and everything else, they are probably weeding out that information to see who is aware and a threat to this new world order of death and enslavement. Every man in public life, every modern politician, to whatever party he belongs, seems to fit in de rigueur, to have his confidential Jewish advisor at his elbow, just as in the Middle Ages a prince had a Jewish doctor, always at hand to mix his potions and ensure him a long life. This appears to be owing not only to the utility of the Jew in financing projects, but to the almost universal belief in the superior intelligence of the Jewish race, which the Jew has succeeded in implanting into the Gentile mind. It's not true that they are superior. They brag that they've done everything, but if one looks, they've done nothing. They basically feed off of other people's doings. And in the United States, sodium fluoride they put in the water, and toothpaste, and who knows what other products. Sky Spring there has aluminum, which is a byproduct, an aluminum byproduct, which is also like fluoride. And it does lower the IQ and make the human beings more lethargic. So when they say they have a more intelligent, active brain, they probably do because they're not drugging themselves. But they are drugging the people of the USA and probably in Europe and the rest of the world with the sodium fluoride. Eustace Mullins, Murder by Injection, his book, has all the details. We've gone over that in a past video. And many other books have that information. Moving on here. But the time has come to ask, is the Jew really the Superman we have been taught to consider him? Nestor Webster. On examination, we shall find that in the present, as in the past, his talents are displayed principally among two lines: financial and occult, witchcraft, magic. Usurers. Remember Jesus overthrew the usurers, money changers' tables, charging interest? Usurers in the Middle Ages, financiers today, and the Jews have always excelled in making and manipulating of wealth. Well, I'm just a bit curious, knowing that they're into the occult and magic, witchcraft. What kind of control do they have over people to get that wealth? Good question. What's the answer? But most people don't believe in magic and the occult. But they'll study all those books published by the New Agers, and if you look on the index, it says Lucas Publishing or Lucifer Trust, which is the devil. And just as the former period, they were the great masters of magic. It says it right here. So at the present time, they are the masters of almost magical art, of gaining control over the mind both of the individual and the public. And as I said in the past, if you're one of these evil people, and not all Jews, but you want somebody's industrial textile factory, for example, or their liquor production facility in Kentucky, and the seller will not sell it to you at your price if you're one of these evil people, well, between magic or some kind of murder where it seems like an accident, voodoo, maybe the guy gets sick and has a heart attack. Nothing stands in the way of what these people have done, and are going to do. Is that clear? My opinion, from reading all these books. It's difficult to read this stuff and talk about it. Try talking about it with some of your friends. They're going to think you're out there. Nobody wants to believe. That's called normalcy bias. It's a psychological condition that nobody wants to believe in something so horrible is looming in our future as the destruction of the world as we know it, loss of all ownership of anything, and becoming slaves living in like barracks if you're allowed to live. Remember, the Georgia USA Guidestones, they do want to eliminate 85 to 90% of the world population. And I was watching some videos today, and they clearly admit they just don't need this many people using planet Earth's resources or polluting their air. And who are the real polluters? They are. They've controlled the industries. Yet in the realms of literature, philosophy, painting, sculpture, politics, and even science, Jews will be found frequently occupying the second or third ranks, and only very seldom the first. Heine may be cited as a poet of the first order, Spinoza as a philosopher, Disraeli as a statesman, but it would be difficult to prolong the list. On the stage and in music, alone can the Jews be said to have proved absolutely the equals to their Gentile competitors. The fact is that the Jew is not usually a man of vast conceptions, nor is he endowed with great originality of mind. His skill consists of rather in elaborating or in adapting to other men's ideas and rendering them more effectual. Thus, the most important inventions of modern times have not been made by Jews, but have been frequently improved by them. Neither James Watt, Stephenson, Marconi, Edison, Pasteur, Madame Curie were of the Jewish race. None of them were. Who have lived since the dawn of our civilization. Napoleon was not a Jew. Shakespeare was not a Jew. Bacon was not a Jew. Sir Isaac Newton was not a Jew. Michelangelo was not a Jew. Leonardo da Vinci was not a Jew. Galileo, nor Dante, nor Descartes, nor Morelli, Emerson, Abraham Lincoln, nor Goethe, nor Kant, nor even Machiavelli. Thrown on their own resources, what civilization were the Jews able to create? Whilst Egypt, Greece, Rome have left immortal monuments, what monuments has Palestine bequeathed to the world? The Jews then provide the highest average of cleverness. But have they ever, during the last 2,000 years, produced one mighty genius? Moreover, against this high average of intelligence must be set an equally high average of mental derangement. On this point, we have the evidence of the Jewish Encyclopedia. It says here, the Jews are more subject to diseases of the nervous system than other races and peoples among which they dwell. Hysteria and neurostasia appear to be the most frequent. Some physicians of large experience among Jews have even gone so far as to state that most of them are neurotic and hysterical. I'm going to read little highlighted notes on the bottom. Gustave Le Bon goes as far to say, the Jews have never possessed either arts, sciences, or industries, or anything that constitute a civilization. At the time of their greatest power under the reign of Solomon, it was from abroad that they were obliged to bring the architects, workmen, and artists, as we have read in the Freemasonic books that I went over in previous videos, of which no rival then existed in Israel. Las Primeras Civilizations, book page 613, 1889. It should be remembered, however, that Hiram, the master builder, was half, if not wholly, an Israelite. just reading the book. And I do have that other book that I went over that I couldn't read. I'll look at it again in this video. But they brag that they've done everything and nobody's ever done anything but them. I find it interesting in here, Nestor exposes they haven't done everything. They steal everybody's ideas or use them. So this one doctor said, Tobler claims that all the Jewish women in Palestine are hysterical. And Raymond says that in Warsaw, Poland, hysteria is very frequently met with among both Jewish men and Jewish women. The Jewish population of that city alone is almost exclusively the inexhaustible source for the supply of hysterical males for the clinics of the whole continent. Oh my. And remember, they control everything right now. They were the instigators and culprits involved in 9/11. So much of the legislation and stuff going on in the world today, manipulating the currencies, owning industries. They have no human empathy. They're cold-blooded like reptilian creatures. Maybe that explains it, you know? How could anybody think like that? That stuff I went over in the Talmud, the stuff I'm going to go over. Like I said, this is not an easy video to make on these issues. I set out to find out who done it. What the heck's going on in the world? I was never rendered a bad opinion about Jewish people. I want to know who did it. Who were the Freemasons? Who are the Illuminati? Who are all these people getting skull and bones, causing 9/11, World War I, World War II? Who's behind the scenes? And I'm discovering it. Albert Pike, in his letter to Mussolini, or his friend, however you say it, Mussolini, that there were going to be 3 world wars. We've only had 2 so far, so is one coming? Do they plan that? Are these people that mentally deranged? Those are harsh words, and I mean it. I don't want a new world order. I don't want to destroy 85% of the population. I don't want to see people suffering living in the streets. I don't want the United States to fall. I'd like to see Europe, all those countries, rise up and get out of that European Union. It's just a prison system. The Jewish population of that city alone is almost exclusively the inexhaustible source of supply of hysterical males for the clinics of the whole continent of overseas. As regards Austria and Germany, the same neurotic taint of the Jews has been emphasized by Kraft, Ebing, etc. This is Jewish Encyclopedia article on nervous disease that this came from. The Jewish Encyclopedia and the Jewish World for November 9th, 1922. In New York, it has been shown by Collins that among 333 cases of neural disease, which came under his observation, more than 40% were of Jewish extraction. Remember, they only account for less than 1 or 2% of the population. 40% had mental illness. Remember, they do control our world in all kinds of forms. Alan Greenspan said before Congress that they were running a program of economic destruction. And Congressman said, you can go see the video on YouTube, or you can just look it up. Alan Greenspan, economic destruction, those keywords, and you'll get what he said, who said it. And the congressman said, won't some people get hurt? And Alan said, well, a few people will get hurt. Well, I know 10 years ago, I had a house 2 blocks from the ocean, condo in Orlando, 55 acres in Maine, a boat, motorcycles, stocks, money, and today it's all gone. And a lot of other people I know the same thing. I've used my resources to survive the last 10 years. But of course, I've taken it upon myself to go do research instead of just focus, trying to make money in an ever difficult world to make money in. I saw that. So I didn't get myself caught in that trap. I let the material stuff go. I have no regrets on that issue. Moving on. Anarchists have been developed largely from the criminal classes. Anarchists. They want anarchy, destruction, chaos, riots in the streets. Have been developed largely from the criminal classes. And a belief in anarchy per se. That's part of the communism, and as George Bush Sr. said, as well as many others, out of the anarchy and chaos will come the New World Order. They know they have to crash and burn everything for them to gain control and enslave us all. And they need to remove the arms, weapons, guns, and rifles from the people of the USA. They are focused. They are causing those shootings. They're blowing them up in the media. They're using the propaganda to pass legislation. And you can bet they will. And there will be a revolt by the people. And they are prepared for that. Jade Helm, putting troops and equipment all over the United States, buying bullets for the government agencies, cameras, security system, monitoring your computer, iPad, iPhone, credit cards, debit cards, bank accounts. They're collecting a profile on everybody. Determining who will be the threat, who is awake, who is aware. The other people who are not awake and are not aware, they do plan on having them neutralized, killed. So the anarchists have been developed largely from the criminal classes, and a belief in anarchy per se is a psychopathic manifestation. A student of anarchy, therefore, would not only be obliged to cover the field of criminology, but it would be more significant, important background, psychopathology. Some anarchists are actually insane, while others show marked psychological deficiencies. And that's why Obama had a lot of our leading military leaders ousted. They wouldn't have gone along with this, what's going to happen, the New World Order revolution. They plan on pulling off. Under our laws, as they are now framed, they cannot be restrained unless they commit acts of violence. So even if these Zionism, Illuminati, Church of Satan, occultists, Kabbalah, freaks seem insane, and even what they do to some of our people, like Miley Cyrus doing some of the stuff she does on stage, nothing can be done about that until they do some criminal acts of violence. As it is, our asylums are filled with this class, and that introduces another phase of the matter. Our asylum insane are largely recruited from the Jewish race, at least recruited in tremendous disproportion to the numbers of the population. The fact that the revolutionary movement is so largely made up of Jewish elements furnishes an interesting confirmation of what I have said. Some powerful stuff, if true. The Jewish World, probably be a newspaper or magazine, recently commenting on the generally admitted fact that the percentage of mental disorders among Jews is much greater than among non-Jews. Now remember, they put fluoride in our water and our toothpaste, and who knows what other chemicals. Even kids who are very attentive in school are told that they have ADD and they're put on drugs when they're just normal children who want to see and learn. In the cause inherent, that is to say, is there a racial disposition towards degeneracy, or is it the result of an external condition or causes? Well, I can see part of their religion causing a mental disorder. One, if you're confronted with the fact that you and your people killed Jesus, Son of God, and you don't want to convert to Christianity, and you want to say that you want revenge and take over the world, that could cause a rather interesting mindset, degeneracy, hysteria. You're going to be hysterical to want to kill everybody. Psychopathic, insane. Yes? No? The writer goes on to refer to an article, this is 1924, in the Zurich newspaper, something like that, which supports the view, this is page 398, by the way, if you want to get this book, supports the view that the terrible experiences of the Jews in the Middle Ages have affected their nervous system. So the Jews went through some tough times in the Middle Ages, and so did everybody else. Make no mistake about it. And have affected their nervous system. Therefore, that the cause of mental derangement amongst them is not due to racial disposition, is not an ethnic principle, but it is a result of a tragic lot of the Jewish people. And as Christians, throughout history, the Jews can't not say that we have been kind and generous, and even in their vicious aggressiveness in our communities and taking high places and accumulated lots of wealth, they have no conscience, no compassion, and no empathy. They want wealth, money, material, whatever it takes. And we Gentiles, or we Christians, don't think that way. We're kind of trusting good people. Hence, we have to be destroyed. Jesus was a good man, an perfect man. And they hated him. They loathed him. They had him crucified. They hate Christianity. They banned Christmas, but they got the menorah, the 7 candlestick thing, in the Washington, D.C. holiday settings. They banned Christmas. That should tell everybody something right before our eyes in our lifetimes. And it's not going to stop there. It will be a crime to profess that you're a Christian. They'll say Jesus was a fake and you're worshiping a fake idol. It might perhaps be traced more surely to the habit of brooding on a tragic lot. Are they brooding over something that happened thousands of years ago? And before Jesus, 2,000 years ago, was 3,000 years ago when Moses helped them, if the Bible is correct, to be free from the Egyptians who had enslaved them. Yes? No. If you read your history, yes. Okay. So Moses helps them get out of Egypt. Parting the sea, God did, so they could escape. Then he goes up to the mountain to talk to God to get the instructions. Comes back with the 2 tablets of 10 commandments. And what are all the Hebrews doing, the Jews? They collected all the gold and built the golden calf. And were having a drunken orgy. Moses smashed the tablets. He had to go back up the mountain for 40 days to get 2 new ones. So 3,000 years before Jesus came along, they had turned into the dark side. The pagan religion, the satanic Luciferian, demonic religion, and activities. We are all spiritual beings. And we need to be conscious of that. What we do in this reality affects our next reality. God, in his infinite wisdom, obviously knows that, and this planet Earth life gives us the opportunity to make a decision to go to the good side or the bad side. They were made a promise back then, but there was conditions, and they didn't hold up to their conditions, so they broke God's promise. Then, hence, they were dispersed all over the world. Many people know this. So the promise of that being them having all that land in Palestine or Canaan was broken a long time ago. But they don't want we Christians or Gentiles or other people of the world to know that. All we people of the world are the victims of some apparently deranged peoples, and not all Jews. As it says in this book. At any rate, it is curious to notice that the 2 symptoms recognized in the first stages of general paralysis of the insane, the mania that one is the object of persecution, and exalted ideas. So they have to keep up this threat of persecution and have exalted ideas of getting revenge on the rest of us. Paranoia. I don't have paranoia. I'm doing research. I wanted to find out what the heck's going on. I'm surprised by what I'm finding. But I also have complete faith in God and believe in Jesus, who came, was crucified on the cross, and rose again, and talked about in his Father's world there are many mansions. So I imagine myself in God's hands to protect me. And there is a psalm in the Bible that says, "Whoever shall seek refuge in me, I shall be thy shield." So you got to have faith in this, that whatever happens, have faith. These people who are doing this New World Order thing, 9/11, all these shootings, all this murder and mayhem in the Middle East, an insanity to taking out Assad. Obama has said it, Bush has said it, all the other TV commentators on all the Zionist, Anunnaki, Jewish-owned TV, radio, newspapers are saying it. They're all bought and paid for. So this general paralysis of the insane, the mania, that one is the object of persecution and exalted ideas, known in France as the folie de grandeurs, are the two obsessions that the Talmud and the Kabbalah, these are their religious books, magic, witchcraft, Talmud and Kabbalah. I've read a few things from the Talmud, and there's more I could read. It's worse than I even thought on that issue. In the Talmud it says the best of the goyim, the best, our best, the more alert, the more intelligence, the more kindly, the more Christian, the best of us are to be killed. With their dreams of world domination under an avenging Messiah. So they think this Messiah is coming, Antichrist, I guess you could call it, having calculated in the mind of the Jew. So they believe this, that they are. The rest of us are animals, like dogs. That's what they think. That would make somebody a little disturbed in the noggin. But whatever are the causes of this neurosis, it is surely undesirable that a race which exhibits it should be allowed to control the destinies of the British Empire, and indeed of any country. You see here, if these people have this mental derangement, disease, affliction, insanity, psychopathic, should they actually be allowed to rule everything? Can you understand why Obama had to get rid of our military leaders? Look it up if you don't know about that. If all of the Jewish women in Palestine were hysterical, presumably many of their mankind suffered from the same disability, which certainly does not promise well for the luckless Arab who has to live beneath their sway. And we're seeing what that looks like in Palestine, Afghanistan, Iraq, Tunisia, Ukraine, Afghanistan, I said, all of Syria, Egypt. If you have some mentally insane psychopaths in charge, you got some problems. How much of the trouble that has occurred already in Palestine, 1924 I'm talking about here, it's worse now. If Nestor Webster were alive today, what would she be saying? I got people who ask me, they go, Rick, why do you put yourself out there? Why do you care? Well, what if nobody cared? And that murder and mayhem comes to America, which is already here. They're causing it. It's illegal to be homeless. They got special places they take you. You never come out again, probably. You disappear. And more people are becoming homeless by the day. Alan Greenspan, look it up. Economic destruction. That's what they're doing. And they're determined, and they're not going to stop tomorrow. They didn't come this far in a couple hundred years to quit. Generation after generation, apparently, they've got this delusion about ruling the world. And that their God gave them the world, and the rest of us are animals. I'm not saying this. All these books are saying it. They're saying it. And I can prove that too. For many years, I was reading the J-Posts. And I would read the press releases. Just like I do with the press releases here in the USA newspapers. And I copied them. Copy-paste. Put them in Word documents or printed them out. I got boxes of the stuff that the people over there in Israel have said in comment sections of the press releases. Not nice. The things they say about Jesus, oh my. Sarah Silverstein, that comedian, I saw her on another video today I was watching. And she said, yeah, we killed Jesus, and if he came back, well, we'd kill him again. And the crowd was clapping and laughing. What does it take for people to wake up? How much of the trouble that has occurred already in Palestine may be attributed to this cause, it is impossible to know. The increasing number of Jews in positions of authority in England, I'll say the USA now, this is 1924, presents, however, a far greater subject for alarm. Jews and Arabs are at any rate both Semitics, and may be expected to have certain ideas in common, but to place a highly civilized Aryan race, like the United States of America, under Semitic control is another matter. That's why they're trying to disarm us USA people. The time has come for every Briton, and I'll say USA here, to ask himself whether he seriously desires to see the traditions of his country, those great traditions of honor, integrity, and justice, which have been made the name of England great, and I'll add the United States great, replaced by Oriental standards. Remember they have the lodge, the Grand Orient Lodge? And if you look at a map, you know, Israel is in the area of the Orient. I do not say that there are no honorable and upright Jews. And I'll say there are. I'm not saying there are not any honorable and upright Jews. There are. I would prefer they be speaking up rather than me. They could probably make a larger impact. But I do know that they can be destroyed and tortured and persecuted, prosecuted, killed, whatever, if they speak up. And they have been. Good and upright, honorable Jews have died. That's where I got my information. By books and stuff that these good people have been writing. Go on Zionism and Images, as I keep saying, and look at the photos of Jews trying to expose this stuff. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, to eliminate the opate. Opate means believe in God. PhD Henry McCall, author of Canada, wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. These are Jewish people telling us. How many Christians are out there standing up for Christ and Jesus? Never mind exposing this stuff. And I'm just studying. I didn't know who the culprits were. But we can say clearly that it is these Talmud, Zionism, occultic, Kabbalah Jewish people, which include people probably from other races who are into the Kabbalah and magic and witchcraft, and just greedy, selfish, evil men and women of all races who have joined these people, or who have been bought and paid for, or are being blackmailed by these people. They do that to the politicians. If you want to get up in high places, they have to have something on you. This is common knowledge if you're a researcher. But I do maintain, in the spirit of fair play, which is the essence of the British character, it is not a characteristic of the Jewish race in general. So she says it right here. It is not characteristic of the Jewish race in general. The complete absence of this spirit shown in the attempts of agitators to suppress free speech during elections cannot be attributed to English working men whose sporting instinct is highly developed. Sporting instinct. And testifies to the alien character of the so-called labor movement. In England, losses of spirit of fair play, if England loses spirit of fair play, if England loses the spirit of fair play, she will have lost her most precious national heritage. In the United States, doing business, there is no fair play, even in the stock market. By the time it crashes, these wealthy people in the know have already sold off. And then when everybody else is sold off, then they buy it all back, pennies on the dollar. The banks have been prosecuted for that, fined millions. It's out in the open. Conservatism, which has always stood for these great traditions, allows itself to be hypnotized by the memory of Disraeli and accepts his dictum that the natural tendency of the Jews is to conservatism. Hence the advisability of placing Jews in control of its interest. The late Mr. Hagman saw further when he warned us that those who are accustomed to look upon all Jews as essentially practical conservative, as certain, too, to enlist on the side of the prevailing social system, will be obliged to reconsider their conclusions. The causes of the recent, I'm going to stop talking here, debacle of the conservative government are still obscure, but the fact remains that it was precisely at a moment when conservative organization had largely passed into Jewish hands that conservatism met with the most astounding disaster in the whole of its history. In the manner of which conservative propaganda was conducted at this moment was an example of Jewish efficiency. It might be well to consider whether on the future occasion the task should not be confided into the hands of some Britons. So that's enough for me today. I'll continue this video tomorrow. But I will say this, and I've said it before. Without a doubt, Woodrow Wilson had all Jewish advisors prior to World War I. Jewish people were involved, Zionists, banksters, Rothschilds, Rockefeller, Chases, Morgans, and all those, in financing Hitler, according to the pools and who financed Hitler. It's all well known that the Bolsheviks were financed by the banksters and set into Russia to kill the Tsar and his family. So my point is, if these Jewish people, through whatever means necessary, gain their positions of power in our country, in our world, for the last 100 years, if the result is what we have gone through and where we are today, and they're in charge, then they're responsible, and I don't believe it was an accident. They intentionally, it's in their books, they're taking the country down to the road of destruction. The burning of the phoenix, so there can be the rising of the phoenix. And if you don't know what that means, go look it up on Wikipedia. The phoenix rising. This is all occultic, this is all evil and satanic and biblical. And we, the people, need to wake up. Alright, continuing on. You know, what is socialism? Let's talk about that for a second. Socialism is where the government takes care of the people. Is that right? And if that's right, and the government is in debt up to here, United States, what, 18 trillion? How can they take care of people? Creating these big conglomerates, Target stores, Walmart, Home Depot, Office Depot, putting millions of small business owners out of business creates a big social dilemma. Unsustainable. That's a good explanation of unsustainable. This taking control of everything, controlling the population. And now that they have control of it all, the evil forces that want the New World Order, they realize they don't need all the people to feed and have supply gas to. Just to have a, crowded planet, so they say, which is absolutely incorrect. I mean, you get on a plane and fly from one city to the next and look out the window. Much of the land is farmland or forest. Fly from Miami down to Cancun and see how much of Mexico is jungle. All over the world. They've forced everybody into these cities. And they, with the Agenda 21 and the New World Order, it's going to be much worse. Communism equals communes, community living, and everybody only gets what they need to survive. The luxuries and comforts are to be removed. Owning a car for one person, living in a 1,200, 1,400 square feet residence for one person, they're going to probably outlaw that, ban that. So back to this book. The only effectual way of combating socialism is to show up the alien influences behind it. So socialism, if you can imagine it as an army, is leading the way to communism, and behind communism would be the Illuminati, dictatorships, a new world order. And behind that would be these forces, some call Zionist Jewish folks, Nazi Jewish folks, and others who have joined their program. So let's make that clear. There's plenty of Christians out there who really are not Christians who have joined this. There's plenty of people that we think that are Christians or Americans who are Jewish in disguise. I'm just curious about the Donald Trump thing. His daughter marrying a Jewish guy, and they're converting. His son marrying a Jewish girl, and they're converting. And if you know anything about the Jewish people and the religion in the state of Israel, that is strictly forbidden, discouraged. Serious problem there. So the only explanation is maybe Donald Trump might be Jewish. And we'll talk about the Bush family, the last name Bush alone. Should say something biblical, Bush. And we see him at the Wailing Wall with the little cap on. And other things suggest that, again, history, Henry Ford's book mentioned this quite often, that they took on the identities of the country they go to. Which so does Freemasonry. You walk in a Freemason lodge in the Middle East, the Arab country, you're going to see the Muslim Bible there on the altar. In America, it's the Christian altar. Maybe in Iran, it's Zoroaster. India, the Hindu book. China, maybe the book they have for Buddha. So I'm saying you see a lot of similarities here. But socialism is a problem. They might do socialism, I'm going to get my words here correctly, allow it, promote it as a way of bribery and convincing the public to go along. Free food stamps, free money, free checks, free cell phones, free grants, free college education. But it's only to get everybody to jump on the bandwagon, marching towards this new world order. Once we get there, once the planet gets there, once the United States, whatever means they use to pull it off, gets there, there will be no longer any free food stamps and money. And if you read some of the books, which I will show you, they say that people will only get enough to supply them to eat and sleep and live, which they require, and they get nothing if they don't work. Slavery is not a good thing. Socialism is leading towards slavery. Independence is supporting yourself and working, and not having everything in the big conglomerate farms or big conglomerate manufacturing, water supplies, or anything else, because they can all be shut off if they're all interconnected and huge. But hundreds of thousands and millions of small farms and ranches and different mining operations, and it's a lot harder to shut all that down. And all these people who owned all these industries and have polluted all of our waterways, now they want the American people and the world's people, they've had this problem all over the world, to be responsible and pay for it. Well, all they wanted to do was reap profits. Okay, who are these entities who only wanted to reap profits? Just thought I'd add a little thing in there because I'm reading this here. The only effectual way of combating socialism is to show up the alien influence behind it. As long as the working man believes it to be the outcome of genuine British labor movement, he will turn a deaf ear to all warnings of the anti-socialist propaganda, will merely serve to drive more recruits into the socialist camp. You can see that they're bribing people, giving them free money. They don't know it's not going to last forever. But let him once suspect that he is being made the tool of foreign intrigue, and all his national feelings will assert itself. We have only to ask him whether he wants his work taken from him by the import of alien goods. We know that all the jobs in manufacturing have been shipped out of the United States, most of it. His housing accommodation appropriated by alien immigrants, finally to make him understand who are the people behind the scenes advocating a policy so disastrous to his true interests in order to gain his support. And as they say, the United States is turning into a nation of renters. Okay, who owns those homes? And who eventually will reside in those homes and will not be able to be for rent to us USA citizens? It's a concerning question. It's all a plan, in my opinion. And a lot of people who are ignorant just think there is no plan, when they can go to the library and pick up books and see there is a plan. But they don't want to believe it. Normalcy bias. It might cause them to have to take some action and turn the Simpsons off. SpongeBob, turn it off. Modern Family, turn it off. 2.5 Men, turn it off. Don't go watch the movie Hunger Games. It's all insanity. It takes away the common sense of we the people. The Secret Service has overwhelming evidence on this last point, which under a conservative government might have been made public, but unseen influences in high places have ordained its suppression. The slogan, Britain for the Brits, that would form the strongest counterblast to the false slogans of socialism, has been barred from the conservative platforms, and the very word alien avoided, lest it should offend Jewish susceptibilities. Thus, out of the difference to the Jews, conservatism allows its most powerful weapon to rest in its armory. So you can't say Britain for the Brits. The Jews won't like that. In reality, these tactics avail nothing to the conservative cause. The great weight of Jewry will never be thrown into the scale of true conservatism. Only insofar as conservatism abandons its patriotic traditions and compromises with the forces of internationalism will it win any considerable Jewish support. We have but to follow the commitments on current policies in the Jewish press in order to realize that the only standard of which the Jews judge of any political party is the measure in which it will confer exclusive advantages on their own race. 1924, Nestor Webster says this. Well-recognized author. The Jewish question, therefore, does not turn on whether the Jews shall be accorded everywhere equal rights with the rest of mankind, but whether they shall be placed above the law, whether they shall be allowed to occupy everywhere a privileged position. Nothing less will satisfy them, and any attempt to oppose this claim will always be met by them with the cry of persecution. Further, this position of privilege represents to a section of Jewry merely a stage on the road to world domination. For if, as we have seen by documentary evidence, this plan has always existed in the past, it is likely that it has been abandoned at the very moment which seems most propitious for its realization. So they're not about to end this program of world domination that they have spent hundreds of years, maybe longer, dreaming of, thousands of years, dreaming of, and working towards. Lots of people have died, lots of wars have been fought. The trend of present events and the tone of the Jewish press certainly do not warrant any such conclusion. To sum it up then, I do not think that the Jews can be proved to provide the sole cause of world unrest. I agree with that. In order to establish this contention, we should be obliged to show the Jews to have been the authors of every past social convolution in the history of modern civilization, to discover their influence behind the heretical sects of Islam, behind the Bavarian Illuminati, and the anarchists of Russia. So we can't prove they're behind everything. In the absence of any such conclusive evidence, we must therefore recognize the existence of other destructive forces at work in the world. I agree with that. It's not all just the Jews, the bad Jews. But this is not to underrate the importance of the Jewish peril. Although the existence of an inner circle of Masonic peril, Masonic elders, remains problematic, Jewry in itself constitutes the most effectual Freemasonry in the world. Remember, my series is Freemasonry and Satanism. What need of initiations or oaths or signs or passwords among people who perfectly understand each other and are everywhere working for the same end? Far more potent than the sign of distress that summons Freemasons to each other's aid. I guess one of the signs is this here. And of course they have the thing like this, the hidden hand, handshakes. We've gone over that in my Blue Lodge handbook stuff. So, to each other's aid at the moment of peril is the call of the blood that rallies the most divergent elements of Jewry to the defense of the Jewish cause. The old complaint of the French merchants already quoted would thus appear to be justified, that the Jews are particles of quicksilver, which at the least slant run together into a block. One must therefore not be deceived by the fact that they often appear disunited. There may be, and indeed is, very little unity amongst Jews, but there is immense solidarity. A Jew named Morel, referring to the persecution of the converted Rabbi Drach by the Jews, observes, "What can the wisest measures of the authority of all countries do against the vast and permanent conspiracy of a people, which, like a network as vast and as it is strong, stretched over the whole globe, brings its force to bear whenever an event occurs that interests the name of Israelite? It is a solidarity that constitutes the real Jewish peril, and at the same time provides the real cause of anti-Semitism." And throughout the last couple thousand years, probably before, that has been the problem. When the Jews moved into a community, they wouldn't join the community. They wouldn't integrate themselves into the community. They kept themselves apart while they accumulated all the property and the wealth and ownership of everything. And then eventually, it hit the fan because they're not benevolent, apathetic. No, I shouldn't say apathetic. Empathetic. Sorry about that. And merciful peoples. That's, if you run out of money, too bad. Go sleep out in the ditch. So when they gain all the wealth, they gain all the wealth. There's nothing for anybody else. So then the people would rise up and run them out of one nation, out of another. Many times. France, Germany, England, Europe, Russia. Even there in the homeland, in Canaan and Palestine, they were run out of there. Why? And of course, not all Jews, as I keep saying over and over and over. But the good Jews who need to stand up, because when the revolution starts, as we all know, the riotous mob out there are kind of ignorant and won't know the difference between Jew and non-Jew, or good Jew or bad Jew. It gets insane. And it's all intended to get insane. They want anarchy and chaos. Apparently that's part of the satanic, luciferic, demonic religion. Chaos and anarchy. If in a world where all patriotism, all national traditions, and all Christian virtues are being systematically destroyed by the doctrines of international socialism, one race alone, a race that since time immemorial has cherished the dream of world power, is not only allowed but encouraged to consolidate itself, to maintain all its national traditions, and to fill all its national aspirations. Only Jewish people who can prove it can move to Israel. At the expense of the other races, it is evident that Christian civilization must eventually be obliterated. They're working towards that, making it illegal. Banned Christmas. The wave of anti-Jewish feeling during the last few years, this is 1924, the wave of anti-Jewish feeling that during the last few years has been passing over this country has nothing in common with the racial hatred that inspires the anti-Semitism of Germany. It is simply the answer to a pretension that liberty-loving Britons will not admit. Those of us who, sacrificing popularity and monetary gain, dare to speak out on this question, have no hatred in our hearts, but only love for our country. That would be me. Got no hatred for the Jews or Israel or anybody. I do love the United States of America and the way that it was when I was a child and grew up and lived my life as an adult. And I would like that opportunity to be there for generations to come. But apparently these New World Order, world domination, Zionist, high-level Freemasons, Illuminati, Jesuits, Rosicrucian, Council of Foreign Relations, Heritage Foundation, Club of Rome, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger Group, and so many more, Church of Satan, witchcraft covens all over the country, occultists, Kabbalah people, banksters, Hollywood crowds, CEOs, and the rest of the mafia-like crowd who want world domination and to take whatever they can from the people. So those of us who, sacrificing popularity and monetary gain, dare to speak out on this question, have no hatred in our hearts, but only love of our country. We believe that not only our national security, but our great national traditions are at stake, and that unless England awakens in time, she will pass under alien domination, and her influence as the stronghold of Christian civilization will be lost to the world. Little highlighted note down here. It is curious to note that the Jewish writer Margolthoth makes use of the same expression when he says, "It was well remarked that the house of Rothschild was spread like a network over the nations." And that would be History of the Jews in Great Britain, Volume 2, page 161, 1851. I'm going to make another video. This says conclusions. But I think I'll add a couple documents to this video here, and then I'll end it. Well, I have a document here I'd like to read. that I think is apropos to the conversation. World domination. United Nations with the meditation room into the occult. Controlled by the Zionist factions. Whether you call them high-level Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati. Zionism, Jewish people who abide by the Talmud, a very seemingly evil book, Bible, instead of the Old Testament or the Torah. Jesuits, occultists, Kabbalists, all kinds of people operating out of the United Nations, pursuing Agenda 21 and other sustainability and fabricated global warming or ice age threats, environmental threats to fool the people into some kind of passive socialism. All right. The Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, Attorney General named Lynch, that's a little suspicious, announces the launch of the Strong Cities Network at the United Nations General Assembly, New York, United States, Tuesday, September 29th, 2015, a few days ago. Announces the launch of Strong Cities Network. Just like we have all the Office Depots, Home Depots, Walmarts, Targets, everything is interconnected and controlled by the puppet master. So you have to pay attention to this stuff. Strong Cities Network. All right, here we go. Lubricate the tonsils. Thank you, Mayor Bill de Blasio. I think that's the mayor of New York City. For those kind words, for your dedication to promoting equality and expanding opportunity. Lies. We all know it's lies. They're economically destroying the USA. So when they say promoting equality and expanding opportunity, they lie. They're trying to change our social structure, promoting the gay agenda, sustainability, that nobody can use their property and has to downsize and minimize their use of resources. So when you read these documents, you got to see that they lie. And for your service to the people of this great city, a city I call home, I would also like to recognize High Commissioner for Human Rights, Prince Zeid Rad Hussein. Barack Hussein Obama, is that it? So this guy's Hussein, and Loretta Lynch, I believe, is African, and human rights by the Hussein, that's again suspicious, and the UN Habitat Program for their inspiring work and bold leadership as we work to create a future of sustainable peace. All they have to do is stop their empire building and New World Order plan, and we would have peace. They lie. Sustainable peace, development opportunity. They're doing everything to stop development, at least by we Gentiles, non-Jewish entities, and the non-elitist. And I'd like to thank all the mayors and other municipal leaders who are helping to ensure safe and prosperous futures for our communities and our world by serving on the steering committee of the Strong Cities Network. They're trying to make it everybody monitored, microchipped, and have a world police force that they control. That can't be good. It is a pleasure to join such a distinguished group of world leaders on this historic occasion, and it's a privilege to represent Obama administration in the United States as we inaugurate this innovative, collaborative, and critically important global effort. See the keywords here? Strong Cities Network, global effort. So they're slowly putting together a control network. Can't be good. Imagine just trying to control one city block when you can control hundreds of thousands and millions. Just like the Freemasonic lodges in all the cities and on the corners. A silent army. Because those people swear under threat of death they will keep secrets and do what they're told and obey the master. They may not know why they're doing what they do. We gather today at a crucial moment of challenge and opportunity for the security of our nations. The security of our nations? You know, we're supposed to worry about the United States, not the security of our nations, where these people from the United Nations are implementing all these overthrow of governments in the Middle East, Ukraine, and trying to bring down the U.S. and Jade Helm shipping UN equipment all over the country with big UN symbols on it. And the well-being of humankind. We know the people controlling our reality are these Zionist Jew Talmud folks, and they hate Christians and non-Jews. They want them all destroyed, and they control the United Nations. So you read this document, you have to use your brain. 14 years ago, not far from where we stand today, terrorists carried out a vicious assault on democratic values and inclusive societies everywhere. Yes, terrorists did assault democratic values and inclusive societies everywhere, but it was an inside job. Building 7 was obviously rigged with demolition explosives. Even that guy Denny, the demolition expert from Norway, looked at the video and said, of course it was rigged with demolition explosives. And he was dead days later. It's like John Kennedy said that there's an evil conspiracy controlling our reality, and he was going to expose it, I'm paraphrasing, and he was dead days later. So their brutal attack claimed the lives of thousands of innocent victims. But wasn't there a lot of supposedly Jewish people warned not to go to work that day? Weren't there some people who made some interesting selections on the stock market for American Airlines that day? A lot of suspicious things going on the books we looked at. Including citizens from 90 nations. So why do they want to mention in this report that citizens from 90 nations were in those towers? It's propaganda. And in the years since that morning when terror rained from the sky, we have continued to see violent extremists emerge from within our own communities. Zombie, mind-controlled young men doing school shootings, marathon, movie, church, who seemingly are controlled, and the whole thing looks like it's using actors to pull off these events that they publicize on the main news. From terrorists inspired by groups like ISIL and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, all trained and financed by the CIA, to fanatics motivated by hatred against religious and ethnic factions. And they're the ones who hate Christianity, the people who control our reality, the Alan Greenspans and that Chernoff guy who was in charge of Homeland Security, and all these other people who say that they are being harassed when reporters ask them questions about this stuff. Quit harassing me. I'm not going to answer your questions about 911 or anything else. Some aspire to travel overseas to train or to fight. How many people do you know of that want to go overseas and train and fight? Others plot attacks on targets within their homelands, using mercenaries overseas to fake attacks. I'm just using my commentary, my interpretation of what I think is going on. In the United States, we still have the First Amendment, free speech. I've been doing research, and I'm free to think. You're free to think. But all are antithetical to the shared vision and common cause that joins us here today in this renowned international forum, committed to collaboration, dedication to peace, devotion to the cause of justice within our nations and throughout the world. Lies. There's been nothing but wars for the last 15, 20 years. And they planned and did World War I with the Balfour Agreement, all to get annexed the land of the Palestinians. World War II. It is clear that the challenge of building resilience against violent extremism, so if anybody wants to defend their nation from going into the New World Order and being enslaved, you will be called violent extremist. A challenge that spans vast oceans and borders while impacting our most tightly knit cities and towns. They ship the jobs to China. They're ruining the towns. The people who control the United Nations. This lady. And, her people who tell her what to do. And the rest of the politicians who do not seem to be working in the interest of the USA citizen. Requires a response that is both wide-ranging and highly focused. National governments have a crucial role to play in ensuring the safety and security of the nations they serve. And here in the United States, it is our highest priority. Neither the Justice Department I lead nor the administration in which I serve will ever back down from our commitment and our responsibility to safeguard our citizens and defend our homeland. But as a lifelong prosecutor and a former United States attorney here in New York, I've also seen firsthand how local authorities can serve as the front lines of our defense against violent extremists. So when they try to destroy Christianity, which they are doing, they've already banned Christmas. Any doubt about it? And you don't want them to take the mark of the beast or a vaccine they want to force people to take. Look it up on the internet. You don't know what's in it? You'll be a violent extremist. As residents and experts in their communities, local leaders are often best positioned to pinpoint sources of unrest and discord. So local community leaders can pinpoint people they think who might resist the New World Order. Best equipped to identify signs of potential danger. They've got computers gathering data on all of us. And best able to recognize and accommodate community cultures, traditions, sensitivities, and customs. By creating a series of partnerships that draws on the knowledge and expertise of our local officials, we can create a more effective response to this virulent threat. And they're trying to privatize everything. Water departments, garbage departments. Everybody knows everything the government does is a disaster. And they're trying to increase their control on everything. And they're going to create a bigger disaster. The government of the United States is fully invested in this collaborative approach. And we have seen the value of empowering local communities by promoting initiatives they design and lead themselves. So they've got all this propaganda going on like Agenda 21, and they're keeping it secret from the public. But they are having meetings with our leaders and conspiring against us. My opinion, and many other people's opinion. Though our model regions program, they've got the United States divided up into 10 regions, building many FEMA camps, buying many bullets, and have even sent guillotines to military bases. Why? FEMA sending troops all over the United States. Why? Through our Model Regions program, federal officials have partnered with a wide array of local stakeholders. What are we people? Investments? Including government and public safety officers, social service providers, educators, businesses, and nonprofits to build up and implement community resilience frameworks tailored to the unique needs of residents. In Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota, for example, government officials, private partners, and civic leaders have come together to create a mentorship program for Somali youth to build an opportunity hub that provides educational resources, job training, and to contribute to a program called Youth Prize. They always come up in these different programs. When I was young, I was an A student, and they tried to invite me to join Upward Bound, that provides educational resources, job training, and contribute to a program called Youth Prize that is forging connections between community organizations, investors, and young people. They are after the young people's minds. At the same time, officials of the greater Boston region where they had the Boston Marathon bombing, are exploring the connection between criminal justice and public health by partnering with the Massachusetts Executive Office of Health and Human Services to tap their experience with violence prevention and intervention. So they got all these crisis actors creating these events with false flags so they can pass legislations to put controls on all our cities and have our officials join in on the monitoring and mind control programming of we the people. And in the Denver area, the United States Attorney's Office has led a multifaceted community engagement and education effort involving all levels of government. They're conspiring to control us. These initiatives and others like them were the subject of a convening just 2 weeks ago organized by our Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Community-Oriented Policing Services in conjunction with the Police Executive Research Forum. They have brought over, look this up, Israeli police chiefs to the United States to train our police departments, which brought together law enforcement executives and community partners from a dozen cities to plan ways to translate these cutting-edge programs into new regions. Think of the movie Hunger Games, Divergent, so many out there. These efforts have shown us the power of harnessing local expertise, leveraging local leadership to create targeted and effective approaches to eradicating violent extremism in any community. Where has there ever been violent extremism in any community? Other than the communities where they create situations where the people rise up. They don't want you to know that. Create the problem and then you provide the solution. That's how you cause revolutions. Everybody has to buy into your programming, though, your mind control. We have learned that open dialogue and consistent engagement with a wide range of constituents is essential to crafting strategies and forging partnerships that will address a full scope of the threats we face. What threats do they face? Here in the cities in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, Maine. Who do they think we are? Who do they want people to think that we citizens are? The threats we face. We have seen that communities must be empowered to take these steps themselves so that the prevention approaches they design are crafted for their unique situation. And we have observed the need for a mechanism. We have observed the need for a mechanism that will expand the most effective efforts to reach more people around the globe. They want to do this clamp down on everybody around the globe. New World Order come to mind. World domination come to mind. Why, meanwhile, they're emptying all the people out of all the countries at the Middle East. They're fleeing to Germany and Switzerland and Norway and Greece and islands. As we have observed with the need for a mechanism that will expand the most effective efforts to reach people around the globe. A way to highlight the best local ideas so that they can be adapted for use in other communities. Until now, we have lacked that mechanism. They got this software now that'll make all the decision. They got drones. They got cameras everywhere. Yeah. Until now, we have lacked this mechanism. So now they have the mechanism. They just got to get all the local mayors and city police chiefs and involved in it, them against us. So the way it appears. We haven't had the benefit of a sustained or coordinated cooperation among the growing number of cities and municipalities that are confronting this ongoing challenge. Communities have too often been left isolated and alone. But through the Strong Cities Network that we have unveiled today, we are making the first systematic effort in history to bring together cities around the world. Not just the United States. We want a one world order. It's not going to be good. To share experiences, to pool resources, and to forge partnerships in order to build local cohesion and resilience on a global scale. Today we tell every city, every town, every community that has lost the flower of its youth to a sea of hatred, excuse me? You are not alone. We stand together and we stand with you. The people who control Hollywood and the cartoons and our school systems have ruined our youth. It's part of their program. The people who wrote this speech. Truly, this is a groundbreaking endeavor. By connecting municipal leaders, facilitating information, sharing and providing training, other assistance where appropriate, the Strong Cities Network will help to fashion a global response to a global issue. Here in the United States, what's the global issue? We should be a sovereign country, can continue to keep our Constitution and Bill of Rights, and not have to abide by this Noetic law, which comes from the Talmud Jewish people and Zionist, which is very horrible. Without losing sight of its inherently local roots, it will offer city leaders a way to learn from one another about successful initiatives and productive programs. It will provide a platform for discussing community policing and preventive strategies that safeguard the individual rights of citizens. The people who run our world control the Federal Reserve and the money supply and the stock market. They're ripping us off blind all over the world. While they had that shooting at that college in Oregon, the Pacific Trade Agreement was signed, and it came out in the news that they're just beyond belief slaughtering the Arabs in Syria. They distract us. Well, they have this kind of stuff discussed. You got to read between the lines. And it will support the practical delivery of community resilience programs in cities that are taking a new look at this evolving issue. I want you to know the Obama administration is deeply committed to ensuring that the Strong Cities Network, as a strong, vibrant, resilient as the cities as it unites. And I remember on his Obama healthcare plan, you can read it after we pass it, Pacific Trader Agreement. You can read it after we pass it. The internet new legislation, you can read it after we pass it, and people still can't read it. Because we know this model works. Here in the United States, we have joined with local partners to bring down far-flung human trafficking rings, to strengthen trust in law enforcement, and to thwart cybersecurity threats and to combat official and international corruption. Human trafficking rings. What seems to me, these pedophilia rings, every time it gets exposed, they throw it, hide it. They close down the investigation for national security purposes. Look that up over there in England. Our experience tells us that partnering with city-level officials and the communities they represent extends the reach and deepens the perspective of national governments and international alliances. Who controls the United States? We, our government, and us, or the United Nations? They don't want you to know, but the United Nations is pushing all the agendas forward. George Bush Sr. said someday all the Americans will pledge allegiance to the United Nations. Look it up, don't believe me. And connecting these localities to one another, as the Strong Cities Network is doing, is not only a powerful way to lift up our communities worldwide. Lift them up to where? Why not just get some jobs and get the farms back in the people's hands? Community industrial manufacturing. And not have people have to go to college and finance the whole thing and take half their lifetime to pay the college loan back. There's something very evil about this whole thing. And connecting these localities to one another. So they want to interconnect every city with each other, and it's going to be controlled by these people. New world order, new age, as the Strong Cities Network is doing. It is not only a powerful way to lift up the communities worldwide, it also sends a message about who we are and what we aspire to be. I'm reminded of Star Trek and the Borg. As an alliance of nations, as a global community, when the representative of the Strong Cities Network joined for their first annual summit in Paris in the spring of 2016, see, just another program trying to get everything interconnected. They will be making a strong and clear statement to their citizens and to the world. Oh my, we stand united against violence. They're creating the violence. United against fear. They're creating the fear. United in the pursuit of a better and brighter future. They're trying to destroy the United States and take away our property rights and our freedoms, our guns, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. They're trying to destroy Christianity, banning Christmas, and yet I have all this evil Talmud-type Jewish religion going public everywhere. This will not be easy. There will be difficult days for us all. But the spirit of collaboration I see before me today, the devotion to partnership and the mutual support, gives me confidence in our effort and the hope for the journey ahead. Thank you once again for your outstanding service. Thank you for your visionary leadership on a project without precedent. And thank you for your commitment to a mission of our time. At this time, I would like to turn things over to Shaster Hallelich, the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Strategic Dialogue. Institute of Strategic Dialogue. This is from the Office of Attorney General, September 29, 2015. Officer of Institute for Strategic Dialogue. Strategic propaganda, strategic lies, strategic deception. If I had to interpret this speech. Go look it up. It says here, Attorney General Loretta E. Lynch announces the launch of a Strong Cities Network at the United Nations General Assembly. If it says anything, it says New World Order. Zionism in charge. Well, if that wasn't enough for you, the wrenching transformation of America, Agenda 21. Nice little booklet. I bought it from the American Policy Center. You can go online and see their website. Tom Deweese on the top of the list here. Sends me emails on a regular basis, keeping me updated what they're doing. Trying to defend America against Agenda 21. What is Agenda 21? It's the front line for sustainability. We don't have a sustainability problem, but they want everybody to think there's a sustainability problem. They're sky spraying us, using HARP systems, controlling the weather, causing droughts, creating the economic destruction Alan Greenspan said before Congress. All these wars without any authorization, without any knowledge. The people of the United States don't have any say-so about anything. What should that tell you about the future? Strong Cities of America, we just read about Mrs. Attorney General Lynch, Loretta Lynch, the wrenching transformation of America. You can get more copies of the book. Here's the address. Go to the website. So I'm going to be reading from this book on different videos. Just trying to get through the whole book, adding it as a supplement of information, verifying, as we read in the secret societies and subversive movements going on for the past couple hundred years, all planned via the Freemasonic lodges and other organizations, and take over our governments, taken over of the Federal Reserve in 1913 in secret during the Christmas holiday while everybody was on vacation. You don't think that was intentional? And 6 months before World War I they did it, so they controlled our money supply. And when they talked Woodrow Wilson into taking us to war, our government had to borrow from their Federal Reserve, owned by the Rothschild and other Illuminati members. So that they talked Wilson into tricking us into war without the people's knowledge. We borrowed the money from their Federal Reserve to fight the war, so we owed them the money back plus interest. A plan, you think? Anyways, introduction to the wrenching transformation of Agenda 21. You can see I highlighted some stuff. The battle to stop Agenda 21 and sustainable development is raging across the nation. Local residents and patriot organizations have taken up the battle cry to expose and defeat the most insidious assault on American freedom ever devised. So when Loretta Lynch said in that previous document I just did of extremism and hatred in America, she's talking about people trying to resist Agenda 21 and the gay agenda and many other things, eliminating the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, gun ownership, all kinds of things, taking away property rights, freedoms, bank accounts. For more than 2 decades, Agenda 21 has been sneaking into local, state, and federal policy, driven by the same non-governmental organizations, NGOs, that helped plan and write Agenda 21 at the international level. So the United Nations created this Agenda 21, and they're sneaking it into our local city governments. And of course they have to bribe them with money and other things, and promises they'll be in control when the big evil thing happens. They'll be our masters, all these bought and paid traitors in our own country. It's tough words. But this isn't about the United States. This is about a new world order, world domination. Calls for a tough conversation. Okay, using language specifically designed to hide their true intent from the public. It's all local policy, decided by local officials, and community input. They constantly proclaim. They're lying. It's global domination. However, Americans are starting to figure it out and take action. As a result, despite the fact that Agenda 21 looked like a done deal, citizens are rising up to expose the policies and in many cases succeeding in stopping them. While these are baby steps, they are steps forward nevertheless, especially considering the rich, powerful forces that are working to push sustainable development into every level of government and in every community of nations. And Loretta Lynch, speaking just the other day on strong cities connected all over the world, interconnected. They say one thing they're not doing, and we look the other way, they are doing it. Deception and lies is all we're getting. It's all we have been getting for many years. As a result, the sustainabilists are in a panic. These people who are saying we need sustainability, global warming, global ice age, terrorism, Ebola plagues, all kinds of things that they are bringing, creating, causing the problems. They're in a panic and have stepped up their efforts to discredit and defeat our movement. Proponents of Agenda 21, like the International Council of local environmental initiatives, and the American Planning Association, APA, have organized boot camps to train their planners and allies in the local governments on how to counter our efforts. They have changed their planning language after we told citizens which words and labels to be wary of. They have changed the names of programs as we expose them. They have changed their tactics for implementation. Above all, they have worked overtime to attack us as fringe radicals and conspiracy theorists, simply because we quote the very programs that they have written. Therefore, it is necessary to keep up with this changing battle, and it is vital to change our own tactics to counter theirs. The purpose of this manual is to provide concerned Americans and activists with the background, history, language, purpose, and inevitable disastrous results that the policies of sustainable development and the Agenda 21 bring to our nation and our freedom. It's a lot of stuff to say. The manual lists the names of the perpetrators of Agenda 21, and most importantly, offer new ideas and tactics for fighting against their schemes in local communities. They're sneaking in our communities with our mayors, fancy dinners, I suspect, praising them, appealing to their pride and greed, selfishness. And also, they don't want to be on the losing side when the New World Order happens. This manual seeks to provide you with the knowledge and ammunition necessary to begin a campaign to stop Agenda 21 in your community, state legislature, and even affect the re-election of your district's congressman or your state senator. Every successful action requires a first step. Yours is to read and share the knowledge of this manual. Go to the website, get it. What is Agenda 21? Agenda 21 is not a treaty. It is not a law of the land. Agenda 21 is soft law. Policy designed to define, outline, propose, guide, and direct policy on international, national, state, and local levels. So somebody here at the top is trying to guide all the local levels. Meanwhile, they're installing cameras, they're buying bullets, they're building FEMA camps. You get it? Got it? It is gaining that power through the efforts of non-governmental organizations that created it at international level. Through their lobbying efforts on both the federal and state levels and their direct involvement in local governments, these non-governmental officials have become the stormtroopers necessary to make Agenda 21 the law of our land, and they are now operating in nearly every city, town, and rural area of our nation. Why is Agenda 21 dangerous? Agenda 21 is not a conservation or environmental policy. It is a comprehensive blueprint to literally reorganize human society. If completely implemented, Agenda 21 policy is designed to drastically change the very foundation of American culture, economy, and form of government. And we know who's at the top of this pyramid. We've been reading the books. We know how these people think and what they think of non-Jews, us goyim cattle. They want to gain control. They don't have a pleasant outcome for us all. Agenda 21 policy establishes regions based on environmental lines rather than state or community boundaries. They want to reorganize the whole country into 10 regions, forget the 50 states. To oversee these newly created entities, Agenda 21 proponents work with the elected officials to create new government entities in the form of non-elected regional councils. So they probably promise these elected officials that they will be the honchos in charge when they pull this off. And it'll be that way forever, them against the citizens, the masters, the slave masters, the taskmasters. Eventually these regional councils gain strength and influence that ultimately overpowers and regulates elected government to a backseat position. Oh my. This, in effect, drastically changes our American system of representative government, no longer guided by constitutional law. I keep telling you, Agenda 21 perpetrators seek to create top-down government, power directed by a few. Agenda 21 was created to rearrange the world by eliminating sovereign nations, controlling consumption, natural resource use, and virtually eliminating a free market system. Above all, Agenda 21 was created with the specific purpose of redistributing the world's wealth by be managed by international overseers. I wonder who those international overseers will be. Operating out of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, the Zionists who have plans for world domination? You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure this stuff out. Under the excuse of environmental protection and poverty eradication, they caused the poverty, and now they're going to eradicate the problem that they caused. While Agenda 21 is not a law, it was created by these non-governmental officials operating under the official influence of the United Nations. Once accepted by representatives of nearly every nation on earth, including the United States, the same NGOs, non-governmental officials, who wrote the soft law policy, spread out all over the globe into the U.S. Congress, U.S. government agencies, state legislators, local community governments, to promote and implement and follow the guidelines specifically laid out in Agenda 21. As a result, this non-binding suggestion has become official policy of the federal government as well as nearly every state, most communities. It is being enforced through the use of presidential executive orders, congressional and state legislation, and particularly through the use of grant programs, money, bribery, that are administered through the various federal and state agencies. These grants demand that certain policies, like Agenda 21, be imposed as a means of complying with the grant. So they'll offer a community $1 million, but you got to do this. You got to deceive your people, and then we're going to enslave them. Here's your $1 million if you sign right here. Though this specific implementation process, through this implementation progress, Agenda 21 has grown from a suggestion or guideline into an all-pervasive policy in which sustainable rules and regulations are affecting private property rights, local development, farming practices, energy creation, consumption, industry, and its ability to operate in the nation, modes of transportation, taxes, and education, curriculum. In short, nearly every aspect of our lives is affected by the design of Agenda 21 that they are keeping from the people. That can't be good. Former Vice President Al Gore described in his book, Earth in the Balance, Agenda 21 is a wrenching transformation of human society. So they use propaganda. People see things and they just believe it. I hear it all the time from people. So here they have a picture of a guy driving down the road looking from left to right, economic growth on one side and sustainable development on the other. What do you see wrong with this picture? Economic growth, smokestacks. Sustainable program, progress, no houses, no people. Think population elimination, killing off most of the people on the planet. Sustainable progress. They use pictures, and so you look at economic growth, and you see the smokestacks. Of course, the picture, smokestacks, is negative, and so you see economic growth, you associate it with that. Sustainable progress, you see pretty green stuff with no people and no houses, so you think that's good stuff. They use mind control. You have to have your wits about you to figure this out. They do the industries. They cause the pollution. Economic progress does not have to look like this. We don't have to be putting all these toxic and poisonous growth hormones into the cows and animals that we have to consume that toxifies us, pollutes us, poisons us, causes tumors and cancers. Monsanto, all this stuff. Sky spraying those chemicals in the air. Microwave transmitters all over the world. HAARP systems. HAARP. Look it up. And the other material that I have read about world domination and the people behind it. And they have worked hard. Albert Pike in 1880 wrote about World War I, World War II, and World War III. 9/11 was definitely not done by some Arabs with box cutters. All those people, stock bets on American Airlines, warning Jewish people to not be in the towers that day. All kinds of suspicious stuff I've shown you in the books about 9/11. Videos on YouTube. All kinds of things. Fake school shootings. Proponents sell the concept of sustainable development through familiar and unthreatening words and beautiful pictures. Take a look at the above diagram from Nature magazine. The publication used this image to accompany an article about the glories of sustainable development. An individual trying to decide on the proper road to take. The road leading to the left heads toward an ugly gray city with belching smokestacks. It is clearly marked economic growth. So they're telling you if you're going to have economic growth, you're going to have a polluted city. And that's completely wrong, stupid, deceptive. Growing healthy organic foods isn't going to pollute anything. Having healthy animals that people eat on meats isn't going to pollute or hurt anybody. The road leading to the right leads towards a beautiful rural landscape of tall trees and lush green grass. It is boldly marked sustainable progress. Can you see the mind control? The sign with the image. It directs your attention, and if you're not paying attention, that you are being mind controlled, then you will walk around like a zombie robot parroting these things that they're telling you. Oh yeah, we want sustainable progress. Everything will be beautiful. Yeah, tell that to the Arabs, millions that have been murdered recently. What is missing in the utopian land of sustainable development? There are no homes, no jobs, no human activity. Do you see that? There's nothing there but trees and grass. In reality, the description above is an honest representation of the agenda for the 21st century. They want to eliminate 85% of the population. So there won't be any houses or anything going on. With one major exception. In the sustainable community of the future, where humans are to reside, they will look more like the high-rise buildings from the left, without smokestacks, of course, rather than the grassy pastures on the right. That's Agenda 21. Proponents believe that the free enterprise system that creates factories, jobs, housing, and luxury beyond the mere existence upsets their vision of a well-ordered society. Did you hear that? Proponents believe that a free enterprise system, the way we have the world today, that creates factories, jobs, housing, and luxury beyond the mere existence upsets their vision of a well-ordered society. So these elites who want to live in opulent mansions and fancy ships and yachts like Al Gore, they want to live like that. But everybody else has to live in a well-ordered society, like cattle that they call us, going. If you think that may be overstated, then consider this fact. In 2012, the United Nations held a 20th anniversary event to celebrate the original introduction of Agenda 21. They've been at this quite a while. In 1992. At this event called Rio 20 Plus, several speakers presented the idea of zero economic growth. I don't know about you, but how are you going to make $1? This idea suggests zero factories, zero housing, and zero human activity. You can't make this stuff up. Pause your computer and read it. Zero human activity. Look at the picture. Remember the book I just read with Nestor Webster? And then Loretta Lynch, Strong Cities United, all over the world. Can you see it? World domination. This has, of course, been Caesar's dream, the Roman Empire. Genghis Khan slaughtering people across the continent, the Mongol. Alexander the Great, Hitler, the Vatican, crusades all over the world, carrying their banner and slaughtering people as they go in the name of Christianity. Lying deception, stealing the gold and murdering the people. Agenda 21, and learning about who's behind the Zionism, Talmud. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.